We're going to get started here with Skip. And Skip, I want to welcome you. And for the people that don't know you, you've taken quite a few of our courses. We've actually met down in Mexico. You joined us down there for some training. That was an interesting boat ride we had too. It was a really good time. And I'm glad that you're here with us tonight. And I'm really glad that you followed through with becoming a Normie Pro like you said you were going to. So, if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and what your interest was in at least starting the process of becoming a Normie Pro.
Yeah, thanks, Lance. That was a fantastic educational forum in Mexico. And yes, we did have a lot of fun on the boat. Uh,
Yes.
I guess from more of an overview, many years ago, I talked to my wife and I said, we really need to get into the mold industry. And it was like, why? I said, because it's not comprehensive. They're missing key points. The reason I brought that up was because I have over 2 decades of experience in healthcare, medical diagnostics, and I have a kind of unique perspective. At least I thought I did until I met more Normie members on the microbial landscape, and had too much. Crossing paths with people who had traditional remediation and they were either sick or not and so on. It just spurred my interest on that. And then that it was put on the back burner. I mean, I'm going back 10 years. Then COVID hits in 2019, I think it was. And I was driving on the 101, we're located out here in Santa Barbara. And I saw a plumbing truck go by, and they had a banner on there that they obviously had made up very quickly. It said, "We kill COVID." Okay, that's it. So I'm taking a very different approach to this from infectious disease in that implantable and or sterilization and maximally reduce things that can make you sick, right? Heart valves, you have to be sterilized. They can't create health problems, as supposed to solve them. And so I started looking and was certified by a different entity as a remediator and assessor, and got my feet wet and started learning and got into a little bit of IICRC training. And then through my company affiliation was introduced to Normie. And this is going back now, 2 years anyway, 2 to 3 years, I believe. And I was fascinated by the breadth and depth of knowledge on this very thing that I was seeking. And I just couldn't get enough. I just could not get enough. And of course, I went down the CMA, CMR, and it was the most comprehensive class with the instructors were consummate professionals, and the type of information and the way it was laid out. I mean, I was just soaking it up. And then as I learned more about Normie itself, its history, recently, right? This July was 20 years anniversary. And I started to look at the breadth and depth of other types of programs. That led me to going to the conference in Mexico. And then shortly thereafter, I went to Florida for the NCRSI, NCMP.
Hey,
And
Skip, let me stop you for 1 second because we're throwing a lot of initials out there, and there's people watching that may not know what you're talking about, like the NCRSI. It's the Normie certification for sensitized individuals, actually for remediators for sensitized individuals, or the what is it, the NCMP, certified mold professional or microbial professional. And it's a different look, like you said, at the industry, and I'm glad that you had brought that up. And because of your background from the medical side, you see the value in not just giving patients, here's your medicine, go back to your contaminated environment. And obviously we can't fix people, we fix houses, and that's what the medical side is missing. So I just wanted to bring that back to, I think it's such an important point, and you picked on that, and that was really something that everybody really needs to consider if they're
Yeah.
doing this business.
Yeah, no, thank you for setting me straight on that. My apologies to the audience. These acronyms were difficult enough for me to remember, and now I tend to cite them rather than their full trade name, right? But here's the difference. I was fortunate enough to, we've been hiring some additional technicians, and they're getting their CMA, CMR through Normie, and they will be taking additional classes, one of which has 16 years experience in the industry, more so on the water damage abatement side, but with two different companies in various parts of the state of California. And as we started talking about the things that Normie talks about, I would ask, have you ever had these discussions before? Were these any of these topics, things that you would be talking about on a daily basis, either internally with the businesses that you were representing or with your respective clients? And the answer was no. Nobody wants to talk about this stuff. This is about water. It's about drying it out. It's about demolition, and it's about reconstructing and getting a PRV that passes. And so I know that I'm on the right path. I know we were on the right path, and I know I am absolutely aligned with an organization that is at the forefront of this. And through our conversations, since I've got to know you, and certainly with Doug and others at Normie, this whole IAQ, which is what this is, right? This is an indoor air quality, because invariably, no matter what the water intrusion event, whether it's the catastrophic occurrences in Florida, most recently with the 2 hurricanes and tornadoes, or a water heater leak, it doesn't matter what it is, a water damaged building invariably, rather quickly, becomes a toxic environment from the quality of the air that occupant is breathing. And a preponderance of the industry that I know of, not everyone, does not recognize that. And the indoor air quality aspect within this very large industry, I think, is going to grow in leaps and bounds with its awareness. It's not just what's wet on a wall, it's what are you breathing as a result of that getting wet. And that's critical.
Well, one of the things that, you and I have talked about is, you mentioned this is all IAQ, indoor air quality. Well, a lot of the companies that are out there, or most of them doing all this type of work, forget that they're under the umbrella of indoor air quality. Whether they're plumbers, carpenters, electricians, whatever they're doing has some kind of effect on the indoor air quality, but they don't go to that next level. And that's what you've recognized, and that's what we talk about.
Yeah, when I meet with a client, any of my technicians meet with someone, or even if it's a phone call, I have a mold problem. I said, well, what about specifically? And then we start talking. We have a line of questions, very simple, very, very, very fundamental. Why are you calling? How long have you lasted? And where's the water damage? Right. And so through our inspections and in our preliminary IAQ diagnostics, air testing, right, across, and I'm not going to go down that pathway right now. What we hear invariably, and this is fundamental, I think, not because of my background, but the Normie trained professional is sharing this information, is sharing their knowledge, knows the type of questions to ask. And invariably, we get 100% of the time. I have spoken to 2 or 3 other companies. They have no clue what I'm talking about. That's even a larger issue, not to jump from this subject, when we talk about someone who's confirmed as a Sears diagnostics, or diagnosed with Sears, chronic inflammatory response syndrome. But just the general basis, the general public is doing their due diligence before they call us when they have a problem. They know it's an indoor air quality problem. They know it's a moisture problem, but it all comes back down to building science and then building performance enhancements. So as a normie professional and now having this normie pro designation, I've said it all the time. I tell my technicians, the responsibility falls on you and you alone to be as good or consummate subject matter expert as you possibly can, because somebody is asking for information and we need to give them the correct information, and then the fact that we can solve the problem comprehensively. And Normie's the only one who talks about it. It's the pole position, and I've said this for 2 years. I think Normie should own that pulpit as the indoor air quality authority within this industry.
Well, you just went through the process of becoming a Normie Pro. And I think you had to take a step back and think about all the things that we required. And did that surprise you at all, what we were looking for?
No, not at all. Not since I met you and learned how you operate, and certainly in meeting Doug and Tim and others that were at the conference, you know, I would consider industry colleagues, the breadth and depth of knowledge, absolutely not. The normie track is, and now let me just say this, right? Because I do believe that this is relevant for the audience. I'm operating in California. California does not have any laws associated with mold assessing or mold remediation. There are companies out here that environmental testing companies that are providing, you know, air sport trap, culturable, you know, VOC testing, et cetera, but they're also writing, they're authoring mold assessment reports and dictating what the remediation should be, and they have no certifications, none whatsoever. There are other, you know, and I can cite two right in the same, within 10 miles of my office. And so when you see that happening, you know, the analogy I come up with, and I talk to people who share those reports, I need feedback, I want a second opinion. And you look at it and it's not complete, not comprehensive, not this, not that, devoid of know this, know that, source identification wasn't existing, and yet they're telling somebody they've got to spend thousands of dollars. Hey, there's a problem there. And so part of this is, and I'm not trying to be degrading of anybody trying to earn a good living and trying to help our fellow human beings. But you'd like, with something that's so important, that the person coming in working on your home in this environment, to at least had some type of certifications. Like you go to the doctor, my knee hurts. Well, would you like your orthopedic surgeon to at least gone to med school, right, to know these things? And that's where I'm going to build that bridge. We're not talking about rudimentary type information that Normie is training people with. It is the latest science. And I've said this recently, if the general public knew what Normie is sharing through their training program, if this decades of tens of thousands of peer-reviewed published scientific literature, if it were published in Sports Illustrated, right, People Magazine, Better Homes and Garden, every one of our phones would be ringing off the wall, because it is an absolute epidemic in and of itself.
Let me ask you something on a more positive note.
I'm not trying to be a downer here.
Oh, no, and I appreciate what you're saying, but I really want to focus a little bit more on you. All right. I'm going to have Doug come in here in a few minutes too, and I'm sure he's got a bunch of questions and things he wants to talk about. But I think, oh, you just derailed me with that last statement. You know, it's all about you doing the Normie Pro path, and what is that going to do for your business in your mind, in your planning going forward, if it already hasn't started doing something? That's what I'd like to hear going forward.
Okay, well, you know, I'm a there's no I in team guy here, right? So this is I am one of the I am one of the Normie professionals that has an oar to pull, and that's how I look at it. But to answer your question specifically, the legitimacy, right, of what I say is now backed by a national, highly regarded and respected entity, period. And I use that, right? And I've actually got some areas on my webpage where I'm promoting who is Normie and why is it important. We tell people here that you know, you can go to the California Department of Health in their question and answer page. Again, no laws, but if you need help assessing or remediating, who do you call? And the first one mentioned is Normie. So it gives credibility, and it's the accuracy and volume of information. So when I tell people I'm Normie certified, they don't know what that means. I said, go, and I tell them, go look it up. I want you to look. You can't have this type of a business relationship with someone you don't like, first of all, and secondly, you don't trust. You're entrusting me to solve a microscopic problem that is causing illness within your family. You need to understand that I am very uniquely qualified and capable. The deliverable differentials that we present is unlike anything any other company out here, and that's true. So it does allow me to go down that pathway and say, you know, on the old school stuff, feature benefit. In dealing with us, you get this. In dealing with us, you get this. In dealing with us, you get this. And it does make a difference, and it does matter. The problem that I think we are all faced with, and I'm no different, is this is a educational program. It's creating awareness within the masses, and that's the challenge.
The term that we are constantly using, and this comes from Dr. Gavin McGregor Skinner, is follow the science.
Yeah.
And that's really what we are trying to do. And the Normie Pro level of training and certification or designation is people that we feel have reached the amount of training, expertise, knowledge, have the right disposition to work in this industry. And that's where you are. So congratulations on that. Doug,
Yeah.
I see you've come in the room.
Yes, I have. I just think one of the exciting things to me is to have people like Skip who are really committed to helping folks the right way. I think there are a lot of people out there in the marketplace that maybe think they know what they're doing, but really don't. I think it's wonderful for us. It's always been kind of a dream of mine since we started Normie to have an army of people out there doing what we're capable of doing, but our arms are not that long. We need a bunch of people out there that are telling the story. And we said from the very beginning that we're in the education business. It's not just about educating professionals, it's about educating professionals and teaching them how to educate their clients. And sometimes that means taking the time, spending the energy involved in being able to sit down with the client and tell them exactly what you're going to do. And I think that's one of the things that Skip has brought to the table. That's why I'm so proud to be able to have him as one of our Normie pros. He's going to be in the marketplace fixing what a lot of other people don't even know how to begin to fix. And so thank you, Skip, for your commitment, not just to us. I mean, that obviously is very flattering, but more importantly is your commitment to doing what's right. And I just really appreciate that.
Well, you're very welcome. I mean, it's a joy. I mean, this is a very humbling experience for me. It was a very robust experience that, you know, at this point in time in my life, I didn't know that I had to turn my brain on and go study stuff. But it needs to be, it has to be. Not foolishly ridiculous, like trying to get an insurance license where they make it so confusing that they don't want so many people to have an insurance license. This is about relevant, very critical information. And you know, it has to be stout and it has to be robust. But, you know, back to the science that you bring, well, Doug, you've sat through one of my educational presentations. It's very heavily laden with some of this decades-long scientific peer-reviewed published articles. And you just let people know that this is what happens. This is what happens in an environment. And this is what we've known, not since, you know, 2017. We've known it since 1990. 1995, and yet the industry does not pay the type of attention that it should. We know this, right? And so, and those of us who are knowledgeable about this, we can tell by looking at an air sample result. I know you do it, and I know Lance would do it, and Tim can do it, and there's many people on here that can do it, but how nice would it be? Well, how would that change your business if you could look at an air spore trap result and be able to tell somebody you had a major water event here, most likely recently? And I do that, and they go, how did you know that? Right? And because to properly diagnose the building establishes the framework for creating the sequences of either remediation, abatement, and or sanitization, and reversing the microbial contamination. Therefore, that environment now supports wellness as opposed to being a most likely contributing source to human illness. And it's really cool to be able to do that.
Yeah, so Skip, we have a lot of people in the room tonight that obviously, but I think we have a bigger audience that are going to watch this on our TV channel. And I'm curious as to how you feel, or how would we go about letting our Normie members understand the power of what's in this higher level education, this advanced education, which leads to the Normie Pro designation. And the reason I'm asking that is, you're right, we're celebrating our 20th year. We have some folks, I got to tell you, we have some folks that came in 18, 19, 20 years ago and never taken another course.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, you know, that's going to be the case. What do they say? 20% of the people do 80% of the work. And there's always going to be a small percentage of people who really feel the same tug that you feel and that I feel and that Lance feels about being able to help the clients in a different sort of way, and confident enough to know that they're willing to pay for it. I don't have to, you know, compete with people who are giving stuff away. So I'm just curious, you know, here's a platform for you. How would you tell these Normie members that have maybe been around 2 years, 6 years, 10 years, that this is really a step they need to seriously consider?
Yeah, I would lead with the following, which is the basis of our business out here in Santa Barbara, California. Since we started, I would say that 30 to 40% of our population, of people who call us and we ultimately end up doing work for, are being treated by a doctor, are confirmed to be mold sensitized, and or some of them are very, very sick and are subsequently diagnosed with SEERS. That's how this business has taken off, and people are beginning to realize that. I mean, we've got county employees now that are telling other county buildings that this is the company you need. This is the company you need. So I look at this, and here's the bridge that I'm building, right? If you look at the sensitized individual, the percent of the population that has a susceptibility to mold, it's tens of thousands of people within this audience and the Normie and Normie family or Normie membership who will watch this at another time. In any given part of the country, tens of thousands of people need you to be the subject matter authority. They have an environment that's contaminated, whether that's a hotel, their home or apartment, or their school, or their office. EPA, 50% of the buildings are contaminated, right? What gets you the ticket to the dance? I happen to think it's the Normie certification, right? Because we know what we're talking about. It's becoming that subject matter expert. And then 30% of the population, my goodness, 30% of the population out here in Santa Barbara, as an example, I may be a little bit lofty, but if I include the 20% that has a genetic predisposition, right? And then we look at the SEERS, or what we know to be vis-a-vis, somewhere around 30% of the population. That's 60 years of work for us. Right. With a subset of the population that is, in many cases, at their wit's end. The amount of depression and so on and so forth is just almost incomprehensible. So, you know, in business, I've been in business a long time. You've been in business a long time. Lance has been in business a long time. So what's the low hanging fruit? It just so happens it's the most challenging because nobody wants to deal with it. And nobody has the capacity and capability to deal with it. So therefore, Normie gets you this spotlight put on you. This is somebody who really knows what they're talking about. They can help. That's devoid in this industry out here. It's devoid.
Hey, Skip,
So,
there's a separation in the industry that's happening and it's starting to gain momentum. People in this industry have always been cleaning for appearance.
right.
You know, now it's starting to come across that people understand cleaning for health is different than cleaning for appearance.
Right.
Again, Dr. Gavin talks about this a lot, and I'm using his words here, but he talks about if you look at an airliner, the 150, 200 seats on there, Doug, what was it? They give him 9 minutes to clean the
Right.
plane.
Yeah.
The best you
Exactly.
can do is fold the safety belts.
Yeah.
That's cleaning for appearance. It's not
Right.
cleaning for health. And that's what the whole Normie Pro concept is. It's doing it the right way for the right reasons.
Yeah, somebody who is pretty smart and wise typically will say, you know, if you do the right thing, people notice. So that's you up there in the top left-hand corner of the screen. And that's what Normie is to me. I could not be, there is no other certifying entity that is talking about this, that wants to do it right, who has the breadth of knowledge, who trains people to do it right. And look, we're overlooking many aspects of this, right? We're many aspects, but you have to understand the microbial landscape and the interaction, you know, in that indoor environment. And yeah, every time we fly on a plane, it's like the seat is in a biosafety cabinet with an infectious disease sitting over there in the corner of the cabinet. I mean, it's really crazy. And it is a building science issue. It's all of those things, and water is the thing that turns everything on.
So I have another question for you, Skip, and this is maybe a little bit off the subject, but I'm curious to hear your comments about this. And I know a good lawyer should never ask a question that they don't know the answer to, but frankly, I don't know the answer to this question, so I'm going to ask you. We have a lot of our members, especially the new guys that come in, who think that their business should be built around insurance and insurance companies and insurance payouts. And I'm just curious if you would share with us what percentage of your business is actually paid for by insurance companies?
Less than 1%.
Yeah, so I've been preaching that for a really long time, and thank you for answering that question. And I couldn't have written it better. But I've been preaching that for a really long time, that we sometimes, unfortunately, in the restoration and remediation, even in the assessment business, we tend to feel like we've got to be working with insurance companies, and we just don't. People, I've said it for years, and I think you'll agree to this, people buy what they want. And so if they feel like there's something that's going to improve their health or going to improve their family's health, that's what they want because of their love for their kids, because of their love for their wife or their husband. That's what they want. They're going to figure out a way to pay for it, and they're not going to wait around for Allstate or Farmers or somebody else to write them a check.
Couldn't agree with you more. And here's what Normie does for that person. We are uniquely showing them the microbial profile within their environment. We've identified their moisture content. We have the presence of beta-glucans. We have the presence of actinobacteria. We have marker molds. We have total particulate in the indoor environment. And then we've explained to them in a very simple, easy to digest, that everything that's going on there is in their lungs and then in their bloodstream. We are the solution at that point in time. Because when they talk to other people, they're not getting that. In fact, they can't even go to a healthcare practitioner half the time. that understands what's going on for them within their body. Now, we don't talk about that, the health part. We make recommendations, but we talk about cause effect, right? And this is environmental, and it's air. And I'll say it again. It's why I'm so closely aligned to you guys, to this fascinatingly capable organization. Because if it's on the surface, it gets in the air, it goes back on the surface, it gets back in the air, and it always ends up in your lung. Period, end of story. And that's what causes the problem. And that's up to the doctors to dot that I and cross that T. But we bring them to that point where they deduce that on their own, and they have no other option to have that problem solved.
Well, and as you suggested, I think the whole concept that we've really tried to push hard, especially probably in the last 6 or 7 years, this idea of the microbial load. You think in terms of endotoxins, actinos, and what kind of testing you're going to do, mycotoxin testing, HERCH-Me, what is an ERMI test? What does it mean? What does it do? What does it not do? Those kinds of questions at that higher level, I think, unfortunately, a lot of our members don't realize the value of that. But, you know, there's a lot of people that are suffering out there with symptoms that look like mold that's not mold. And one of the things that I think that we've been really excited about the last few years as we've taught this in our NCRSI class for sensitized individuals is putting together a team, including their doctor, to be able to identify what things they're actually looking for. And it may not even be mold. I think I've told the story before when I was asked to go out to, they thought they had a mold problem. They didn't have a mold problem. They had a MRSA problem. Well, how did I find that? Because when we do an assessment, we don't just do mold, we do bacteria, we do VOCs. And the point is that, as you've said, and I think correctly so, when you have that broader view, there's a lot more people you can help. And it's not just a matter of saying, well, it's not mold, see ya. It's having the ability to be able to go deeper.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what we're going to see here is more of a SWOT approach, right? That there's going to be within that dynamic. And of course, the norming certification class for the sensitized individual, we're already looking at a very, very massive amount of integers affecting that family. I'm dealing with one in Los Angeles now. 10 years ago, they spent $200,000. They ripped everything out of the house. They couldn't live there. They moved to an apartment at this gentleman's estate, lived on his balcony for 5 years until they found a home before they moved into a house. They spent another $200,000 ripping everything down to the, and he started getting sick again, right? And it's not just mold. So you have the healthcare practitioner who's dealing with the patient. You have us that's dealing with our patient, the building. Then you have separate sets of expertise. The lungs of the building is the HVAC system, if they have one. Then you need somebody who's very competent and knowledgeable and patient enough to deal with detoxification. Sometimes that's not the same doctor. Then you have a nutritionalist who specialize in mold detoxification and nutrition. So it's going to take that team approach, and it's a collaboration. And I tell people up front, this is going to be a collaboration. I need to work with your doctor. I need to work with your detoxification expert if they have one or don't. And we are going to work on this together, much like when you go into an operating room to have a knee replacement, you have an anesthesiologist, you have someone who's assisting the doctor, you have the surgeon, you have this, but long before that, you had the team that came in and sanitized and decontaminated. And after the procedure, you've got the intensive care unit for recovery. That's what this takes, because it's that involved. These are very, very microbially toxic environments.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And you just gave me a good transition. One of the things that we started doing last month, and a lot of people don't even know this, we got some advertising out on it, but not a lot. We took all of our building science courses and bundled them into a really great price where you can take these building science courses and understand insulation and air movement and HVAC. And anybody that's listening, if they're interested, they can call, and we'd be glad to give them that number, that coupon code for that particular class. But that's, again, taking a broader view, as you said, a broader view of that environment rather than just going in and taking a couple of swabs. I was telling somebody just yesterday, I had a conversation with someone just yesterday about this, and they were concerned about, am I going to have to spend $20,000 on testing? And I said, well, do you remember, I'm old enough to remember when you took your car in, the first thing they did was change the points and plugs.
Yeah.
If that didn't work, then you took the next step. If that didn't take you, you took the next step. Now, of course, they plug in a computer and they figure out what the problem is right away. But my point is that that really is the way we approach it, almost incrementally, is that what we're doing is eliminating possible problems.
Yes.
And so sometimes that is a step-by-step process. It's not necessarily going in and taking all the tests you could possibly take, in 2 days and then dumping all of that on the client. So again, that's part of that is from the training process, understanding how it is that you can approach this, where a customer can actually afford it, but you can get the information you need to help them and their doctor figure out what's going on in their environment.
Yeah, it's very sequential. I'm glad you brought that up. There's a reason why you are who you are. We look at this very methodically, and we line a bunch of dominoes up. And this is another part of the conversation I talked to with our clientele. Look, the dominoes are all aligned or in position to be lined up. What we need to do is identify rationale for doing anything first and foremost. And once we get a keen understanding of what's going on, then we've positioned those and we just go tick, right? Because understanding what caused the problem, having perfect clarity on what the problem is, dictates the sequences necessary to abate the problem and create an environment that no longer is going to be toxic. And then it becomes a maintenance game. It's no different than, again, this is, look, I could talk about this for days and I'm so passionate about it. It's the working with you all and everybody out there who I can't see right now is the closest thing to when I was working in the healthcare field. Because we all know this, that it's about testing, it's about process, it's about procedure, it's about continuity and consistency. It's about never thinking you've got all the answers, that you have to go into every environment with an open mind, because what you think could have been the problem isn't. It may have been a contributory factor, but it wasn't necessarily primary. It's no different than trying to understand why somebody doesn't feel well, right? And the first thing is the blood pressure cuff, then it's the stethoscope, and then it's, well, you still, okay, maybe we need an x-ray. At what point in time do you order a Chem 20? When you need to order the Chem 20, based upon what the information is telling you you need to do. But it's all data driven, right? It's all data driven. And that's another thing that Normie does. It's data driven. Now, yeah, there's an expense to it and we want to minimize that. And I tell people all the time, my job is to solve this problem without you having to pull any more funds out of your bank account than necessary. And I promise that that will occur. And if I tell you you need to make a withdrawal, there's a good reason for it and you'll know why. If I tell you you don't need to, there's a reason why, and you'll have the data that suggests that you don't need to make that withdrawal, because this is about doing the right thing, right? And so it just makes it so, it's so unique. It's, again, Normie is the PhD. Normie Pro is a PhD, and I have a lot to learn, And I am so very glad that I did take that building science class when it was bundled, because I thought I knew some stuff. And I was able to use many aspects of each of those classes, most recently at a resort in our general vicinity, and told them that they have a building problem. Structurally, it was built in 1908. And this is why you're having these problems. And I was able to educate them and say, let's take a look at how the building was built. What are the problems? This is why you're having these problems. And so you start doing investigating, and all of a sudden you've got credibility, you've got data. Here it is. What do you need to know? And nobody else does this. No other company does it. Everybody is not questioning hearts, not questioning business ethics, but this, we now know, science has showed this, the peer-reviewed studies for decades. This is a major problem. And we're only, most of the remediators, most of the people that are in this business are only scratching the surface. That's why, for example, again, not being disrespectful, but most of the time, most companies fail a PRV 60, 70% of the time in the first shot. Most of the mold goes back because you didn't properly identify all areas of the building that had a water problem. And so you've got this knock against, those of us in this industry. I spent $200,000, mold came back, and I just hired some other company, and I hired some other company, and we're still sick. Well, that goes away with a normie, trained and professional, competent, caring human being.
Well, and I think that's the beautiful thing about what we do when we do it right. You don't want to hear back from the customer that the problem's back. And when you take this holistic approach, I think that's really the answer. Of course, that's why we always call this a solution-based assessment, which is really looking at the end goal. The end goal is we're going to create a cleaner, safer, healthier environment. We're going to do the best we can with your building. That may not be the reason why you're having the issues, but at least we can say that the building is as clean as we can get it. And I know you've done some phenomenal jobs. That's why, again, I'm really very proud to have you as a Normie Pro. I understand you get zeros every now and then on terms of any kind of growth at all when you're through with a project. And I think that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I want to deliver, I think I've used this analogy. You go to the dermatologist, you got something on your cheek, they take it out, right? Or the pathology report, which is what our PRV is the pathology report. There's nothing in there. We got it all. And so it's a change. You know that. We've been talking about how do we interject a different standard of care as an end result. But that's what we do. And it's reassuring, it's reproducible, and it should be certainly for the sensitized individual, the new standard of care.
Well, I'm going to turn it over to Lance. I just want to tell you how much I appreciate you being here, Skip. I know we're winding down, but you know how much I appreciate you and the work that you're doing and the relationship that we have. It's great. Thank you so much for being so committed to what we're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, I just want to figure out what the secret handshake is now.
No,
I don't know what that is.
No, you got to be part of the environmental task force for that. We've talked about that, and we're going to get you involved.
All right.
All right. Well, no, Skip, I want to echo Doug's comments and thank you for, being part of this. We think you're a big asset as a Normie Pro to this industry and to us. We appreciate that. So
Yeah.
if you can hear.
Yeah, no, my pleasure. Proud to be here, proud to drive, be part of this boat. I'm pulling on my end of the oar. I'm talking about Normie as often as I can. It makes a big difference. You gotta have people who know what they're talking about. See, simple. That's the simple part of it.
Well, we appreciate you spending the time here with us. We know you're 3 hours behind me here on the East Coast, and it's the end of your work day, and I guess I'm a little bit early for my next work day, but here we are. So I appreciate that. I'm just looking to see if there's any other comments that may have popped in the room here.
Yep.
Just some thank you, things like that are coming through for you now. So absolutely, we appreciate it, and it appears that the people listening did also. But thank you.
Oh, you're very welcome. My pleasure.
For the rest of you out there, if you are interested in becoming a Normie Pro, I'm going to bring up a screen real quick just to give you an idea of what you need to look for and how you get there to get the process started. Give me 1 second. Hopefully you can all see my screen. This is normie.org. And when you come to the main page at normie.org, you're going to see a blue tab over here on the left. If you click on that, it's going to take you to a page that's going to show you different tracks that you're able to go down for training and advancing your career in this industry. The one that you want to look at is Normie Pro, and it's a drop down. There's a few things that you need to look at. Obviously, all the information's here, things that are required and point values and how you get to the Normie Pro level. But the first thing to do is step one. This is request the Normie Pro status. Once you do that, it's like 2 or 3 questions. It puts you into the system. We're able to work with you and help you through the process. Let you know what you need, what you don't need, and it goes from there. And at that point, there's other things you can look at here. You're more than welcome to click through this and see all the different groups of information that are out there. But this is where you start. Request Normie Pro status, click here. Takes you to a very simple page. A little bit of information gets filled out, and that gets the process started. So I would encourage you, if you have an interest in becoming a Normie Pro, that's where you go. Yes, Doug. Looks like your hand was raised. Maybe not.
I think that was unintentional, sorry.
Okay,
Pushed the wrong button.
telling me to be quiet. Okay, I got it. So, all right, does anybody have any questions in the room? Anything you would want to ask Skip? Or any of us? Anything about the Normie Pro process or designation? Vincent, I'm interested in becoming a Normie Pro as well as service expert. Absolutely. I showed you where you go to start the process. That gets you into our system, and we will be in touch and help you through the process from there. All right. I do want to remind everybody that's in the room to please register your CEUs. We're on the new cycle now, so when this is over, you can go into normie.org if it hasn't popped up behind the screen, which it's supposed to, and just register your CEU for tonight. And that's something that you won't have to worry about later in the year, trying to remember when you attended training. That's all I got. Tim, Doug, anything else you want to bring up or mention? No?
Good.
All right. Well, again, thank you all for being here. We appreciate it. If you have any questions that you think of after we're done here, just go to support@normie.org or send an email to support@normie.org and we will get back to you, or give us a call during the day. And you may hear some new voices and names when you call in. We have some newer people working with us now, so reach out and say hello. Thank you all. Give me one moment. I want to shut down the recording here, and we'll be right back.